The Life After College quests are all looking at the different pieces of who you are becoming and how that will impact what you do after graduation. This quest in particular is going to look at personality and the Myers-Briggs type indicator that you've already taken and how that indicates elements of your personality. So as noted on the Myers-Briggs type indicator quest where you took the assessment, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or the MBTI, is an assessment, and it was developed by Catherine Briggs and Isabel Briggs Myers. This is a mother-daughter team of psychologists. They were looking at research that Carl Jung had done and his theory, really, and they were doing additional research on that, and that led them to developing this MBTI assessment. And the whole point is that Carl Jung's theory states that as human beings, we have some inborn preferences with regards to how we perceive the world around us, how we make decisions, how we prefer to have our life organized, and also how we re-energize as human beings. And when you take the MBTI, it gives you an indicator of your preferences in each of those areas. And we'll discuss in a different quest what those letters mean and what those mean together when you look at all four of your components. For this quest, the big thing is I want to go over some pieces about the MBTI, that some assumptions that people make, and I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what this assessment does and does not mean. So the MBTI has nothing to do with intelligences, what your abilities are. It's really looking at preferences. And something that's really key to note is that preferences can and do shift over the course of our life. So you might have had preferences when you were in grade school, and if you had taken the MBTI at that point, you would have had a set of letters indicating those preferences. And then retaking the MBTI now as a college student, you might even see that those letters change, but definitely the extent to which you have different preferences has probably changed. If you've never taken the MBTI before, I encourage you to keep your results, and in a couple of years, take it again and see if there have been any shifts in those preferences. Speaking of shifts, the MBTI results will look slightly differently, and you'll experience your preferences slightly differently when you're in times of major stress or transition. And that could be right now. As you're transitioning to a new school, you might find that your MBTI results are a little bit different than what you normally expect. Another thing to note is that Western society in general favors the ESTJ side of the scale. So as we look at each component, the introvert versus extrovert, the intuitive versus sensing, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perceiving, and those will all make more sense as you look at another quest that dives into that deeper. But just note that Western society tells us that we should be more extroverted, that we should be more sensing, more thinking, and more judging. And so if you find that you are right on the border between the two ends of the spectrum for a certain category, you might actually be a little bit towards the side that Western society does not favor, because we see a little bit of conditioning coming into play with what our society tells us is desirable and the way that we should be. So keep that in mind if you find that you really are in the middle on one of the scales. The last thing I want to note is that the MBTI is not designed to put you into a specific box and say, this is how you must act at all times because of your results. That's really not true. The MBTI, again, is just pointing out what some of our preferences are, but we all vary in how much we prefer a certain style over another. So just because you're an introvert and somebody else is an introvert doesn't mean that you will act the same ways in every single situation. Part of it is that introvert is one of these four scales, and your unique combination of all four pieces will have an influence on how you react to different situations. Again, even if you have someone who has the exact same 4-letter combination as you, your percentage of preference may vary quite a bit, and personality is one piece of the bigger picture of who you are. So this is not to boil you down to 4 letters and again put you in a box. This is just to help you understand your preferences and how you view the world and make decisions, and hopefully give you a better understanding of why other people might react differently in different situations and have an understanding of what those different preferences are.